Good evening, everyone. Welcome to winter birding in Northern Ontario. I'd like to say hi to everybody. My name is Sarah Rupert. I'm one of the board of directors of the Ontario Field Ornithologists, and I'll be kind of hosting the event tonight. We have lots of great birders from Northern Ontario who will be joining us. So please, say hi in the comments if you'd like to say hi. We're happy to have you here. Carter Dorsch is joining me for the introduction tonight, and I'll introduce him in just a second. So I just want to welcome everyone, let you know that this will be about an hour-long presentation tonight, and we'll also have time at the end for questions. So I can see we've got quite a few people online with us already, so I'm going to introduce everyone to Carter. If you were with us a couple weeks ago, you'll know Carter already. He talked to us about 5 mile radius birding last time, and tonight he's spearheading our presentation on Northern Ontario birding. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Carter, and let you tell everybody about what's going on tonight.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me back. So tonight we have 6 mini presentations that 6 birders from across Northern Ontario have made for us, and we're going to watch them all. And then there's going to be a few of us available after the fact to take questions live. So I hope you enjoy. There's since we only had a few minutes each to present, they're pretty basic overviews for our areas. There's still a lot more to know about winter birding in Northern Ontario, but I hope this is a good introduction for everyone, especially those who have never been up this way before.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Carter. And I'm just going to do a little switcheroo here, and we'll get our presentation started. So enjoy, everyone.
Sarah's iMac disconnected. Ready to pair. In the South Porcupine, so I'll be talking about the Timmins area here in northeastern Ontario. Just like all of Northern Ontario, it's a wonderful place for winter birding. We love winter birding in the Timmins area. It's a challenge, it's fun, and of course it's different. It's not about the number of birds we'll see, but it's about how beautiful it is, and it gives us an opportunity to see different birds. And sometimes you're standing out there and it's completely silent, and you know that in spring the loud chorus of songbirds is coming back, and the contrast is incredible. A good place to start is in your yard. If you install a feeder, you'll get a variety of great birds in the Timmins area. I'll just show you a few examples. You'll probably see red-breasted nuthatches at your feeder, common redpolls. All birds love sunflower seeds and peanuts. You'll also probably see some Canada jays and blue jays at your feeder. You might be lucky and see some wonderful evening grosbeaks at your feeder. Pine grosbeaks, they're all common in the Timmins area and all of Northern Ontario. And of course, all the birds that visit your feeder, they can find food naturally in the forest. Here's a pine grosbeak feeding on cones. You probably recognize the common black-capped chickadee, which visits feeders and are everywhere in Northern Ontario. We have another chickadee called the Boreal Chickadee. It looks different and has a different call. It doesn't visit feeders, so you might want to look for this one in thick coniferous habitat. It's a fun challenge to look for Boreal chickadees in the winter. We have also wonderful Pileated Woodpecker. This is our largest woodpecker, and it's everywhere in Northern Ontario. You can also visit your feeder if you offer some suet. We have other types of woodpecker. The Downy Woodpecker is our smallest woodpecker, and the very similar hairy woodpecker is also common. We have 2 other types of woodpeckers that I'm going to talk about later. Now, these were just examples of birds you can get at your feeder. What if you want to explore more species? because we have a lot of different birds in the Timmins area that doesn't visit the feeders, so I would suggest you go out and explore different habitats. Now, what does that mean? I'll give you an example. If you're around the Timmins area or anywhere in Northern Ontario, find some fields or somewhere where there's open areas and low trees and just different habitats. And if you scan those often with your binoculars, you might be lucky and see a northern hawk owl or a northern shrike. They like this type of habitat. Another type of habitat you can visit is agricultural fields. I put a photo here to show where I saw this beautiful snowy owl near Timmins. Now this of course is a private property, so when you drive around and look at agricultural fields, it's very important to stay on the road and not go on the property, not to trespass. And another reason for this photo is when you see a photo of owls, it often looks like the photographer was very close to the bird, but this is how far I was from this bird. It's very important to stay far. With cameras and scopes and binoculars today, you're able to stay far and still look at the bird. It's important to give them some space because they need to rest and feed, and you don't want to disturb these wonderful birds. Another thing to do in the winter is to keep an eye on trees that have a lot of natural food to offer. An example is fruit trees. So if you have a tree that still has lots of fruits, keep an eye on them. You might see some Bohemian waxwings or other birds going to feed on those fruit trees. We also have crossbills in the Timmins area. White-winged crossbill is a little more common than the red crossbill, but both are possible. And they feed in coniferous trees, so they feed on cones. And if you look closely, you'll see that their mandibles are crossed. And the reason for this is to help them reach inside the cone to extract the seeds. They're wonderful birds. This is a male white-winged crossbill feeding on a cone. And here's another male white-winged crossbill singing last January. Another thing we love to do in winter in the Timmins area is look for these two woodpeckers. Now the American three-toed woodpecker here on the left and the blackback woodpeckers. They are both in the Timmins area and all over Northern Ontario, but they are a challenge to find. And it's a fun challenge, and we love to look for these. We are very fortunate in the Timmins area because we have great trail system, all maintained by the Matagami Region Conservation Authority. The three trails where you can find these woodpeckers and lots of other birds in winter is first the Mclean Drive Trail here in red, also known as the Scout Rock Trail. It's a good one. The Hersey Lake Conservation Area here at the end of Bourchuck Drive is a great spot to look for these woodpeckers. And the Bart Thompson Trail right here. You can access the Bart Thompson Trail from the Ontario Government Complex in Porcupine or from Legion Drive. And all these three trails, I would say, are the most popular spot in Timmins to look for birds in winter. And all three are great spots to look for these woodpeckers. Hersey Lake Conservation Area is a very vast trail system, and every intersection has a map and shows you where you are so you can't get lost. And it looks like this. Wonderful habitat for blackback woodpeckers, lots of jack pines. How do you find these woodpeckers? First, you choose a day where it's not too windy, because you're going to want to listen for them. You will often hear them before you see them. So listen for their faint tapping, and because of the way they feed, the tapping or scraping the bark, it's not very loud, so even your footstep can prevent you from hearing it. So it's a good idea to walk and stop often to listen. So walk a few meters, then stop and listen and continue. Another clue is to look on the fresh snow for bark, and that could be a clue that there could be some in the area. Because of the way they feed, they often leave clues like this. Here's a black-backed woodpecker. You can see the back is completely black. And this one is a male, has some yellow on the forehead. Now you follow the clues like this, you listen for the tapping. We found this bark on the snow last winter in the Bart Thompson Trail, and not far from it was this woodpecker. And you can see some white on the back right here. This is an American three-toed woodpecker. They're a challenge to find, but once they find a good tree and they start working on it, sometimes you can watch them for a while, so it's fun. So that's it. Now I hope you'll try to go out this winter and discover some of our wonderful Northern Ontario birds. And I might see you out there.
Hello, my name is Chris Blom, and I've been asked by Carter to give a brief presentation on the potential winter birding experience in the Sudbury area. And I've elected to try a PowerPoint presentation to try and convey some of this message. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'll try to share screen. Studying nature and teaching the young in winter birding. Bird watching in the greater Sudbury Manitoulin area have enhanced people's lives by allowing them to pursue interests in the outdoors, the backyard, personal and family health, and the contribution to citizen science. Personal bird diaries enhance thought and also elicit a creativity that you really don't know where you might go with, but in the end, it always is a positive experience. Sudbury and Manitoulin birds, and further north. In the greater Sudbury region, a checklist has been printed of the 308 some odd different species that you might come across in the area. Manitoulin Island has over 330 species. Manitoulin is more or less surrounded by the Great Lakes waters, and therefore the diversity is a little bit greater, and they have a little bit more of a chance of seeing different species. The records have been vetted by specimens, recordings, and documental site records accepted by the Sudbury and Manitoulin Bird Records Committee over the last 45 years or so. Regional checklists are created. We have one for the Sudbury area, and we have one for the Manitoulin area. A regional checklist very often will give you an idea of the numbers of different birds that you might see in a given time, as well as possible status in terms of frequency or in terms of its nesting capabilities within the area itself. You can use them to mark off the birds you have seen. This one example here is for the Sudbury area. We also have one for the Manitoulin area. Checklists can be obtained at some of the regional stores. The Backyard Birder is a well-known birding shop in the Sudbury area, and they have checklists available for you, as well as the seed that you might need for winter bird feeders. Winter birding in Sudbury can be very interesting in that we have some areas that have open water. Because of the open water, it allows for a greater diversity, and it also allows for some overwintering waterfowl. Both ends of Kelly Lake have areas that are open, one at the Fielding Park Municipal Park, and the other at the Lily Creek area. Trumpeter swans winter in these areas in small numbers, 14 in 2021. One called Bigfoot is more than 20 years old. It has a mate, and of course we call it partner. And these two birds have set up a breeding shop locally almost every year for the last several years. Some of the parks have feeding stations run by volunteers, a chance for the young and old to get introduced to birders. Some of the municipal parks have well-trodden trails in this COVID times. People get a walk through there, and sometimes they'll see some of the wildlife that's available to them. First time exposure can be a fascinating experience. Trails that are used frequently sometimes have birds that are trained to come to the hen. This is usually a procedure that people have done through giving the bird confidence in approach. We utilize peanuts as a food source, or black oil seeds as a food source. Birds that get used to this kind of behavior will very often grab the food and not only just eat it, they may actually go and store it in the woods and come back for another kernel. The experience in front of a youngster who's never seen this before can be very rewarding. The one little girl here in the pink coat is only 4 years old. The bird is far enough away that it's not going to terrorize her or scare her or give her a negative effect, but she gets a chance to have a close look at the bird and perhaps understand a little bit about the wildlife that is in the local areas. It's a great winter outdoor experience. Birding is a great way to enrich your life and the lives of others. If you are starting out, you can record a life list. First time ever for a species, a calendar day, location, weather parameters, and a species identification. Others do a backyard bird list every year and compare dates and weather. You can join eBird and record your data online, record your observations for others to be shared with. It's a great experience all around. Here's an example of a diary note. Monday, January the 4th, 2021. Sunny, clear, cool. Full moon tonight, -8 degrees Celsius. You better watch your mood behaviors. We visited Fielding Park in Sudbury. What did we see there? We saw 14 trumpeter swans. Did we differentiate the age group? Perhaps we did. We saw 12 adults and 2 cygnets. Mallards, how many mallards were there? Well over 200 birds. Were there males and females? Were there hybrids? Were there farm duck types in there by some chance? American black duck, same size as a mallard, but darker in plumage. How many did we see of them? 16. Did you know that the American black duck and the mallard hybridize? You can find hybrids in the group if you look carefully. Suddenly a large woodpecker flies by over our heads and lands in a tree. What is it? Today I saw the largest woodpecker ever, almost the size of a crow. The Pileated Woodpecker lands on a tree, stands there for a few seconds, long enough to take a quick photo with the digital camera, and then hovers around the back of the tree and hides, maybe to poke its head out just quickly enough for you to have a quick look. Diaries and eBird. By keeping notes in a diary, you can compare your sightings over time and between years as you progress in your interests. Arrival days, departures, nesting, and behaviors are all areas that bring rewards. Backyard lists of your feeders are also great. You can check from one year to the next. What was it like last year in January? What was it like the year before? Did we have a year where there was no snow at Christmas time? Did an eastern chipmunk show up on our feeder when it shouldn't have? These are all great things to compare against, and when your own notes, it makes it for a very personal experience and that of your family. What else can we find out there? Using binoculars and spotting scope, perhaps we could see something very distant. Winter can be the time for owls, barred, great gray, great horned, and snowy owls, to name a few. Power lines are a good place to look for them. The high elevation of the power line gives the snowy owl a chance to look over large areas of the field. They have very good binocular eyesight. They can zoom in on potentially a meadow vole scurrying across, eating some of the kernels of corn that were harvested during the fall of that year, swoop down and capture a small mammal for their food. Regurgitated pellets later on at the base of a post might tell you that the bird is frequenting the area. Great horned owls have competition with common ravens, setting up nests in unusual places. This particular pair of great horned owls chose a raven's nest, which was a traditional nesting site used by the ravens for many, many years. The ravens, when they were getting close to the nesting time in February and March, found the owls there and found it not to their liking. Warning calls were displayed. Other ravens came by and mobbed the owls. The owls were pressured to leave, and over a course of several days moved their nest to a different location. Common ravens nest in the Sudbury area and in late winter. This particular bird was laying twigs down on a nesting site that it used last year. This particular picture was taken just 2 weeks ago when that mild spell in January. You never know when behaviors are going to be elicited. It's always a great idea to go out there and observe the things that you've seen year in, year out, and look for differences. Winter finches are all the rage this year. Pine grosbeaks are common in 2021, and other finches such as the common and hoary redpoll, pine siskin, and evening grosbeak can also be found feeding on the seeds at your feeder. Let's not forget the American goldfinch. In the winter, the plumage is an olive green with black wings and white wing bars. Summer they are bright yellow, so they look nothing like the birds in winter, but they're well worth watching feeding on the thistle seeds that you might provide at the feeder. Canada jays are found in more remote areas, as well as the local provincial parks. Halfway Lake, Killarney, Grundy provincial parks all have potential winter trails to check out with your snowshoes and skis. They can be quite tame, these birds. They can nest in the wintertime in February, March. They build a very deep nest, and the bird very often is buried deep within the bowl of the nest. If you come across a bird on a nest, do not approach closely. You do not want to disturb the nest. You don't want the eggs to get cold and perhaps not hatch when the hatching time arrives. They can be quite tame and nest when the snow is still on the ground. You can provide them with some of your lunch, perhaps. The birds have frequent you, they see you, they might want to take some of that bologna that you have in between your 2 pieces of bread. Birding can be quite interesting in the north. Bring your skis, your snowshoes, and dress warmly. Challenge the north. Book a room at a local hotel in some of the local communities. Look online for the web and see where the municipal parks are. Find out where the trails are. Find out where the closest provincial park is and check out the trails. Get out there and get some fresh air. It's a great experience all around. Bring the family with you. Winter is a great time to get some of those lovely photographs as well. The advent of the digital camera, there's all kinds of possibilities. Thank you for your time.
Hi folks, my name is Michael Dauber. I'm the CEO of the Rainy River Public Library in northwestern Ontario, and today I'm going to be speaking with you about winter birding in the Western Rainy River District. This presentation is part of the library's ongoing citizen science programming. We'll start with some context about the district. The Rainy River District is at the northwestern edge of Ontario, facing Manitoba on the west and Minnesota on the south. The town of Rainy River itself is on the Minnesota border opposite Baudette, and is about 1,900 kilometers from Toronto, or about 250 kilometers from Winnipeg, and that's our nearest major city. Now, the reason Rainy River is such a great birding destination is because the area is at the junction of 3 major ecoregions. So the Boreal Forest of the north, the Great Lakes Forest of the east, and the tall grass prairie of the west. So species of all 3 regions mix here, and not just birds. Mammals, plants, and butterflies from all 3 regions can be found together in this relatively small area. So having set the stage here, we're going to walk through some of the species you can look forward to seeing in the Rainy River District in the wintertime. One of the great compensations of our long cold winters are the colorful winter finches we see each year. While numbers can vary a lot, most winters we see pine grosbeaks and common redpolls in healthy numbers. Both species live in the far north in the summer and migrate south to Rainy River for the winter. The finches can start arriving as early as October, and I've recorded redpolls as late as early May. The best place to see finches is at backyard feeders, but it's not unusual to spot grosbeaks, redpolls, and crossbills picking up salt and grit on back roads at the West End. There's no more iconic winter bird in the Rainy River District than the great gray owl. While great grays are year-round residents of the district, we frequently see more great grays in the winter as they move to areas with good rodent populations. The best places to look for great gray owls are the Highway 621 corridor between Sleeman and Bergland, along Highway 600 between Harris Hill and Cozy Corner, and at Manders on Highway 11 between Stratton and Barwick. Now, if we're having a good winter for great gray owls, there's every chance we're also having a good winter for northern hawk owls. Hawk owls are not permanent residents of the Rainy River Valley. They usually only appear in winters when rodents are abundant. Both great grays and hawk owls are active during daytime, which makes them much easier to locate than most of our other owl species. The best locations for northern hawk owls are open fields along Highway 619, north of Arborvita, and on Highway 11, west of Pinewood. Rainy River is one of the best places in Ontario to see sharp-tailed grouse, and winter is the best time to look for sharp-tails here. While these grouse are year-round residents, they can be much more difficult to locate in summer when they are nesting. In the cold months, it's possible to see 20 or more sharp-tails at one location, and in late winter the birds are very conspicuous, displaying on leks. While sharp-tails can turn up anywhere in the agricultural portion of the district, especially feeding on crabapple trees. Reliable locations include back roads between Sleeman and Rainy River, open fields at Stratton, and along Highway 602 between Emo and Big Fork. The talkative black-billed magpie is one of Rainy River's signature species, and they are easily found across the western Rainy River district in the wintertime. In fact, they're often more conspicuous in winter than during the summer nesting season. Check for magpies around cattle and bison on West End farms. Bald eagles are year-round residents of the district, and I've seen bald eagles carrying nesting materials as early as the end of February. So even in winter, if you see one of our colossal bald eagle nests, there is a chance there'll be a bald eagle in it. The most reliable location for bald eagles in winter here is near open patches of water around Fort Francis, where the eagles hunt common golden-eye ducks that stay through the season. I know boreal chickadees are a very sought-after species, and there is one reliable location for them in the western Rainy River District. In the winter, there's a good chance you will find boreal and black-capped chickadees foraging together through the large spruce bog on Highway 619 between Pinewood and Arborvita. Red-Bellied Woodpecker may not be a species birders associate with the Rainy River District, but red-bellies have been year-round residents here since the mid-1990s. Red-bellied woodpeckers are associated with the narrow bands of bur oak savanna that occur along the Rainy River. One stretch of habitat is in the Oak Grove area, northwest of the town of Rainy River, and a second possible location is around Morley Park, south of Stratton. In recent winters, red-bellied woodpeckers have been spotted at suet feeders around Bergland. So those are some of the winter species you can look forward to seeing in the western Rainy River District. I would also like to pass along some suggestions for a successful trip. Prepare for very cold temperatures. Daytime highs can be minus 20 Celsius, and overnight wind chills can hit minus 50 Celsius. So bundle up. Keep in mind that some accommodations and stores are not open here in winter, so it's a good plan to stock up in advance. Conditions on some back roads may be difficult. While we rarely get large dumps of snow here, it can take a day or two for minor roads to be cleared, especially in unorganized areas maintained by local road sports. And remember, the Rainy River District is in the central time zone, so reset your clocks and watches. I should also say that due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, birders outside northwestern Ontario are strongly advised to postpone travel to Rainy River until the pandemic emergency is resolved. Stay safe. just to wrap up, I've provided a checklist of the possible winter species in the Western Rainy River District. So thank you very much for your attention today, folks, and you are welcome to contact me at the Rainy River Public Library for more information about district birds and the library citizen science programs. Happy trails, everyone.
Okay, my name is Brian Ratcliffe. I live in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I was asked to do just a little bit of a presentation on birding around Thunder Bay during the winter. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that I think is important if you come up our way. First of all, just an overview of the Thunder Bay area and a couple of spots I think are must-see spots if you come here. With the Thunder Bay, the city of Thunder Bay, the waterfront is always a good spot to check out. Especially the north side of the city, its access is a little better there for driving, and so it's a good spot for some of the winter raptors, which I'll talk about, and other species of birds too. For some of the more northern species, like some of the Crossbills, northern woodpeckers, Canada jay, Boreal Chickadee, there's two conservation areas I recommend visiting. One is Mills Block. It's just west of Thunder Bay by a few minutes. And the first 500 meters of the trail goes through a nice, dense black spruce stand and jack pine, so it's a good spot for some of these birds, specialized birds for our area. And the other spot is called Wishard Forest Conservation Area, just to the north of Thunder Bay, about a 10-minute drive from the city and easy access. And that's what I'm going to focus on in a little bit here. So along the waterfront, we have the elevators, rail lines, grain, and with that brings a lot of small mammals, and which brings in a lot of the winter raptors. So snowy owls, we've got a couple of them around right now, and they're usually the best time to see any of these raptors is in the evening time for the owls, just before dark and just right up to dark. The elevators also, with the grain, attract a lot of pigeons and starlings, European starlings. So deerfalcons show up here in the winter also. So watching the behavior of the pigeons and starlings, if they're flying in a real scattered flight, I would look closer to see what's making that happen. If they're just sort of doing a real lofty flight, just sort of doing circles and things like that, there's probably not a deerfalcon around. So just some little tip to keep in mind. Depending on the year, and this year's a good year for some of the flowering crab trees, a lot of bountiful fruit on it this year. So Bohemian waxwings, we've got a really good population right now in town. There's a lot of crab apple trees in town, and I was just out a couple days ago and was watching a flock of around 250 birds foraging in some crab apples. So this is a good winter, and most winters there's usually some of the flowering crabs and crab apple trees do have fruit on them. Everybody wants to see some of the northern woodpeckers, so again I'm going to focus a little bit on those, some of the tips I use to try to go find these guys. I mentioned the Wishard Forest Conservation Area just north of Thunder Bay. It's easy access. It's a road driving right up to it. There's a parking lot on the left side of Onion Lake Road as you come up to the place to park. There's trails that go off to the west. They go more upland and they get out of the sort of the black spruce, white spruce, jack pine stands. But across the road on the other side, there's a trail that comes in off this side. So you got to come back across the road. And there's a loop trail that goes around here. And that goes all through just solid jack pine, spruce, balsam. And it's one of the best places to find these winter and northern woodpeckers. And gray jays, boreal chickadees, both crossbills. So a good spot to check out. It's a short trail. It takes about a half hour, 40 minutes to walk around it. So easy access. It's on the level. Really good. So again, the trail goes through, as I mentioned, this conifer stand. And there's a couple of feeders that are maintained back in there, so that's very worthwhile checking out for Boreal Chickadees and Canada Jays. And also looking around for a sign of these northern woodpeckers, either the American three-toed or the black-backed woodpecker. I like to go just after a snowstorm, where you get a couple inches, at least a couple inches of fresh snow, so that any sign you see, you know it's relatively new and recent activity. So it's something to go, and that's when I like to go checking this local trail out here. There's a good paper by Dr. Nick Escott. It's in Ontario Birds. It's 20 years old now, but it's really a good one, focusing on concentrations of black-backed woodpeckers just north of Thunder Bay. And it all has to do with finding black-backed woodpeckers after forest fire. And these woodpeckers really go after an area that has had recent fire because they're looking for the dead trees. So forest fires are really something you can focus in on. And what I like to do, and read this paper first, is really impressive, some of the numbers he was coming up with. So you can go on to this website. It's through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. And you can just type in Ontario MNRF Forest Fire Info Map, and you'll come up to this screen. What you want to do is make sure you check on the little icon on the side says out, because this is, you're looking for the winter. So all these are were active fires in 2020. So you can see quite a few of them just around the northwestern part of the province here. And that's what you sort of want to get, where you can focus your activities for looking for some of these northern woodpeckers. So again, make sure that out symbol is checked. So focusing a little closer to Thunder Bay, you can see there's an icon here. This is just a little bit farther away from my own house. It was a very small fire. So some of these fires are from 0.1 hectares to tens of thousands of hectares in size. So all this information is there. So what I'm looking at is different icons around. I like to try to find something that's close to a road, so access is fairly easy. This one up here in Dog Lake would probably be a significant fire. It was fairly big in size, but it's a 20-kilometer hike in from the highway, so access is a bit more limited. One other one is this one over here, right on Highway 17, and that's what I'm going to focus in on. This one actually shows the pattern of the fire right along the highway. The icon is at the bottom here. If you click on that, here's the information that comes out. The date the fire was, the size, which I like is important, 110 hectares, pretty big size. So there should be a fair number of dead trees in the winter if this has been burnt 7 months earlier, or 6 months whenever you go in. I went into this site on the 8th of December, and this is what I found. It's right along the highway. You can see Highway 17 in the background, the upper right-hand picture here. The truck is going by, easy access in. Sure enough, in the right picture, or in the left picture, there were lots of sign of either blackback or three-toed woodpecker. And again, I went 3 days after a snowstorm, and sure enough, there was recent activity since the last snow. So again, going back to this image, there's lots of potential where you can find these birds. If you're working in the Kenora area, you can see there was a lot around Kenora. So again, you can focus your efforts by using this map, which really helps because these birds are looking for dead trees to work on and try to find food. When going to some of these locations, all our highways up here and roads are logging roads. The logging trucks are using them all the time. So again, you got to be careful utilizing, especially the back roads. So when you leave the main highway, all these bush roads will have signage. Most of them will have signage, almost all of them. And so read what's going on here. So my general conclusion, what I like to think, if it's plowed, assume there's active logging truck using that road. And these trucks are big. They're traveling at speed, and it's hard for them to stop. So again, the roads are snow-packed, they're icy, they're narrow, and there's no shoulders. So when you do go up these roads and you do park where you're visible from a distance, so these trucks can see you and can get by you when you are parked on the side of the road. And I also always recommend going in the mornings. Generally, there's less wind, so you can hear some of these northern woodpeckers, for instance. But also, if you do get into any trouble, you've got most of the day to get out of the situation you get yourself into. And just a little bit more on the safety aspect of it. Make sure you got snow tires and a spare. Many times people have been caught with a flat tire, and the little donuts work to a point, but again, on some of these back roads, it's nice having full spares. Having a full shovel, sand, a winter survival kit, and a tow rope can get you out of situations that you may easily find yourself in. Remember that self-service is limited. Even our local carrier here out of Thunder Bay, once you get off the main highways, service drops considerably, and maybe your provider from Southern Ontario or whatever may not work at all. So just remember that. And on these back roads too, traffic is often limited. So make sure you leave yourself lots of time, and you're going to maybe in there for a while if you get way back in and get into trouble. So again, warm clothing like this rough grouse. Make sure you're prepared for these changing conditions that we do have up here. So there are just some tips about some of the bird species we do have here and how to adapt to getting to some of the locations that we have locally here to find these birds. And finally, just come up, enjoy our northern hospitality. We have some really good birds up here, and we're willing to share them with you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carter Dorsch, and it's my turn now to talk about some winter birding here in the Sioux Ste. Marie area. Where we are, we're pretty lucky. We usually get a good variety of winter birds each year. Some notable ones that we see pretty much every winter are great gray owls, boreal owls. Maybe not every year, but we occasionally get northern hawk owls. So that's pretty exciting. We have a lot of great habitat to get a variety of different birds, and including some good rarity potential as well. So downtown Sault Ste. Marie is where I'm going to start. The St. Mary's River flows from Lake Superior into Lake Huron, and it goes through Sault Ste. Marie. In typical winter, there seems to be a lot of open water. If it gets really cold, it'll freeze completely over. But this year's actually been pretty good. There's been almost no ice so far. So there's a lot of birds along the river. Some highlights that we've seen here over the years, just recently, a couple months ago, I guess only a month ago now, was the Bacchus winged gull that was found in Sault Ste. Marie and represents a potential first for Ontario. And we also get a good variety of other winter gulls like Iceland gull, glaucous gull as seen here in the photo, and a wide variety of herring gulls of all shapes and sizes, it seems. Then we get the occasional lesser blackback gull, great blackback gull as well in the wintertime. And no ring-billed gulls though. We're still too far north to get them in the wintertime. They won't be back until the end of February. And I think we've also had some other pretty good birds along the river. Yellow-billed loon was one that spent a few days here back in the early 2000s. Barrow's golden eyes showing up on a few occasions now. Harlequin duck, and stuff like that. So here's a little map showing downtown Sault Ste. Marie. I'll go from left to right here. First is the Sioux Locks and Whitefish Island. This is one of the most popular birding destinations in all the Algoma district year-round. In the wintertime, there's obviously a lot less to see, but there's tons of invasive buckthorn shrubs all throughout the island, which attracts a large variety of Bohemian waxwings most winters. right now there's like 300, 400, 500 birds on the island, but I've seen up to 2,000 of them at a single time on the island. They really enjoy that. And then there's, lots of chickadees, woodpeckers, pigeons, and just due to the, some forest habitat within the city in the water, there's always potential for something interesting to show up. The rapids in the south end of Whitefish Island here, that's where there's a lot of common golden eyes. The harlequin ducks like hanging out in there, and you never know what else you might find, the odd long-tailed duck. Over here, Station Mall. The parking lot here is where lots of mallards get fed each winter, which also attracts the gulls. This is a good spot to check out, both view into the river and check out the mall parking lot itself for some interesting gulls or ducks. Another good vantage point is the Bushplane Museum and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry office, which is right beside it. This is a good vantage point out into the river to find ducks. And same with over here, Pine Street Marina. This vantage point gives you a wide view, this whole area here, and there's lots to be seen. And then lastly, we have Bellevue Park here, another spot where the mallards concentrate, and there's shrubs and stuff that can have pine grosbeaks or Bohemian waxwings, and more vantage points out into the river. The nice thing too is that there's the hub trail, which travels all the way down the river here, so you can walk it, and you can get a variety of different vantage points in between these ones as well. And just a quick mention, if you're coming to Sault Ste. Marie to go birding, Rudyard, Michigan, which is about 20 minutes south once you cross the border, is one of the best places in North America to find snowy owls in the wintertime and a wide variety of other winter birds. So if you're here, feel free to check it out. Obviously in the future once the border's open, but it's a pretty good birding spot. Just east of Sault Ste. Marie, we have the Central Algoma area. This is kind of from Echo Bay to Thessalon, Iron Bridge area. And the main highlight here that's consistently seen are sharp-tailed grouse. Which these are obviously highly sought after birds, especially if you're traveling up from southern Ontario where you don't have them. So here at Echo Bay, usually in the wintertime, this is where I live actually, but there's not a lot going on. There's some feeders in town might attract, a grackle or red-winged blackbird that's hanging out for the winter, but mostly the usual stuff. Harbor Flats, open area is good for sharp-tailed grouse and maybe a snowy owl or something like that. Same with Deborah, Bruce Mines, Thessalon, Iron Bridge. Same kind of thing as Echo Bay. There's just feeders that might have, some lingering birds or, the usual stuff. St. Joseph Island, large area, has both good mixes of forest and open fields to have a variety of things. And same with the Dayton fields here. We had a couple hawk owls here last winter, and sharp-tailed grouse are consistently in there as well. This whole area is good to find winter finches as well. Pine grosbeaks, evening grosbeaks, common redpolls, depending on how abundant they are each winter, but you should have no issues finding them in this area. This is a little farther away from Sault Ste. Marie, about 2.5 hours north, but I thought I'd finish my presentation tonight talking about the Wawa area. If you're traveling to Sault Ste. Marie, you have lots of time, Wawa is a good spot too. Here's a picture of a black-backed woodpecker that actually took up in Wawa earlier this winter. So Wawa itself here, fair-sized town. There's feeders throughout, and you never know what you might find. A couple winters ago, we had a Eurasian tree sparrow that overwintered at feeders. Wawa landfill, you can be pretty hit or miss in the wintertime. Depends how wide open Lake Superior here is. You can have no gulls or lots of gulls. It's pretty hit and miss. But the roads off the main highway here, there's a bunch of roads, road that goes to the landfill and then go past it. This is a great spot to find things like Boreal Chickadee, Canada Jay, black-backed woodpecker, the odd American three-toed woodpecker in there as well. Crossbills are usually, found in this whole area. And yeah, and then another good spot, Michipicoten. This is where the crested caracara was 5 or so years ago. More feeders in town that can have a variety of things. So that's a brief rundown on birding in the Sault Ste. Marie area. Anyone is always welcome to reach out to me if you have any more questions. Thank you.
So this is our birdhouse. This is where all the banding happens. And this is where we give people a chance to release the birds back into the wild. Lots of redpolls. Flock of pine grosbeaks just went over a moment ago. And of course, always our lovely black-capped chickadees. So here we are. Lucy is going to take a bird out, and she's going to age this snow bunting for us.
The second year bird because it's got more of the dark there.
So Lucy, tell me, why do you like banding so much?
Well, I like banding because you're helping scientists with the data and figuring out where the birds are in the world to see if they are common or uncommon.
And what would you say to some people that think that maybe kids shouldn't be banding or shouldn't be holding and releasing birds?
Well, I think kids should be holding the birds, and like it's good to be in nature, and like just being in trees is good, but when you're actually like holding that, the kids sort of get the sense that we have to try and protect these, because without birds it wouldn't be the same on the planet. And I don't think it's cruel because you're holding them like they're safe in your hand. Maybe if it's a little kid, the adult holds it, but the kids can like touch it. But I think kids should be holding the birds and banding them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lucy.
All All right, thank you everyone for watching. We are done with our video part of the presentation. I'm just going to unmute all of our speakers, the speakers here, so everyone can just unmute themselves. There we go. All right. Well, thanks everyone. These are great. Okay, so we've got a few people asking where this was, Hilliardton. So we did have a couple questions from earlier on. Someone wanted to know if there was a checklist of birds for Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, there's two different lists. Like, I keep an official list for the Algoma district, which is obviously a lot more than just Sault Ste. Marie. And then there's also the Sault Ste. Marie birding area, which is a 50-mile radius from the international bridge. So that includes both sides of the border. That includes Whitefish Point and Rudyard and down to St. Ignace in the States as well. So those are the two lists. There's not one for actual city of Sault Ste. Marie.
Okay, that's great. Someone wanted to know, how far east do magpies go? Who wants to tackle that one?
We've had a few in Thunder Bay showing up over the years. We had a pair stick around for about 3 years just on the outskirts of Thunder Bay. But basically, as far east as Atikokan.
Excellent.
When I travel to Kenora every year, Dryden is about as far east as I see them. We also have one here near Sault Ste. Marie, though, that's been here for 7-8 years now. That's pretty cool.
All right. Bruce is just joining us in here as well. We had a specific question for Brian. Do you ever use song meters from wildlife acoustics?
Yes, we've been using them in some of our research projects up here, yes.
Okay. All right. And the question about checklists kind of spurred some other people. Are there checklists for Niagara? Are there checklists for other places? And one of the great resources we have is eBird, where you can generate checklists for specific places. So if you don't know how to do that, come join us next week and Mike Boreal can tell you all about that. All right, so I'm going to go into the questions and see if there's any other questions in there.
Where you can generate checklists for specific places. So if you don't know how to do that, come join us next week and Mike Boreal can tell you all about that.
Okay, someone's asking, Carter, is there a birding guide to St. Joseph's Island?
Not officially. There is an old Sault Ste. Marie birding guide that includes a section on St. Joseph Island, which is online. I think it's on the Sioux Naturalist website, but if anyone contacts me, I can find that. Other than that, there's no actual guide, but I grew up on St. Joseph Island. I know it pretty well. I can help anyone out with information on birding there.
Terrific. Someone wants to know if this will be online to watch again. Yes, you can watch it here on Facebook, and we're also going to be posting it up to YouTube. So there's lots of options. I know there's probably lots of places you want to go and rewatch some things and see some of those great videos again. I have to thank Roxanne. You had some great visuals there. Made me very jealous.
So there's lots of options. I know there's probably lots of places you want to go and rewatch some.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's got the presentation going as well as the chat.
I have to thank Roxanne. You had some great.
That cool stuff too.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
It sounds like somebody's got the presentation going as well as the chat.
All right. Someone wants to know how to contact Carter.
My email address is carterdorst@hotmail.
Any other questions?
That's the best way.
All right. We'll give it one more section, see if there's any more questions. I think you can see all of these presenters. I'm sure if you contacted them, anyone would be happy to answer questions for you as well. So I'm not seeing any additional questions here. Don't hesitate to, if you think of something later and you want to send us a message, you can just even send it to the general OFO account and we'll make sure that it gets there. We do have a question about the rare woodpeckers. Are they more prevalent in winter? And everyone's like, nobody wants to answer it.
Roxanne, that's a good one for you.
Well, I think they're easier to find in winter. And like Brian explained and myself, after fresh snow, they're easier to find. It's easier to find the signs if they're around or not. Prevalent, I don't know. A lot of birds are more easier to find in winters because they are more secretive during their breeding period. So I don't know, maybe someone has something to add.
Well, the thing that comes to mind for me would be that they could go to a forest that has been burned over, say, in the last couple of years. That's the best place to check that out, and then listen for the quiet tapping if they're talking about three-toed types.
I agree. That's probably the best thing to do is just go to an old forest fire situation, and they'll probably be nesting close to it.
Awesome. All right. Do we have any other questions out there? Thanks to Ron for typing in Carter's email address for us. We appreciate that. And people are happy to see that children are involved in birding and banding, which is great. Lots of thank yous. All right. Last call for questions. And we'll just give it 3 or 4 more seconds. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Like I said, we will be back again next Wednesday, and Mike Burrell will be with us to talk about eBird. So if you've been wondering about eBird, if you have any questions, we're also encouraging people to send their questions about eBird in advance, so Mike can be sure to answer them during the course of his presentation. So again, just send it to us. Someone is asking, why do forest fires help with the woodpeckers?
The wood-boring insects, the grubs are inside the dead trees, and that's what they're going for, the flat-headed borers and the long antennae beetles.
Excellent. And there's one more question. Are northern goshawk and boreal owl common?
I think they're probably more common than we think, but they're just difficult to find. For the boreal owl, you just got to get lucky. April is probably a good time to head out into a dense conifer stand areas and listen for them. Goshawks, you just got to get lucky. Basically, most you see them are they're just flying by, and that's when you see them. Very seldom do you see them at other times.
Excellent. All right. I think we have addressed everyone's questions. I want to thank everyone. Thank all of our presenters tonight for taking the time to make the videos so we could put it all together for you this evening. Like I said, we'll be back next Wednesday. So if you have eBird questions, send them to, you can message us here on Facebook, send us an email to the General OFO account, and we're going to be happy to answer those questions next week. So thanks everyone for coming. We're going to end it here. But if you have any additional questions, please let us know. And big thanks to everyone for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, everyone.